Good morning, and welcome to our Sunday worship service. I am Martha Schmidt, and I'll be the celebrant this morning. I have been a member of this church for about 35 years, and for the past year, I have been part of the shared worship team with a dozen or so other people. That's why you see me up here so often. You could do this too if you want to. There is a training that's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of fun and very meaningful to be part of thinking about creating worship with Reverend Elizabeth. I also want to extend a special welcome to all of those who are joining us for the first time. We are very glad you are here. If you haven't already stopped by the welcome table in the foyer and over here, there is a newcomer's packet, and you can sign up for a permanent name tag for yourself. Our welcoming committee members have yellow name tags and can answer your questions or direct you to where your questions can be answered. If you're joining us online, we ask you to fill out the newcomer form on the website so that we can be in touch with you to answer any questions you might have. Meanwhile, our usual practice is to gather in community for coffee and conversation after the service, either downstairs in our fellowship hall or in the Zoom room. We want everyone to feel supported and at home here. So let's begin in that spirit by saying our words of welcome together. Whether this is your first or your 1000th Sunday with us, and whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you chose to join us. We are one people of many beliefs, identities, origins, sexualities, and genders. All are welcome here. Now we will take a moment to say hello across the technical divide. First, we're going to show the people joining us on Zoom. If you are at home, please turn on your camera. Now, people at home, wave. Now, people who are joining us here in the sanctuary, it's your turn to wave. We do have some announcements. Starting June 26th, the Social Justice Committee is sponsoring a 6-week course on transgender inclusion in congregations. You may have gotten a flyer on your way in. Everyone is invited to participate. Meetings will take place weekly on Thursdays from 5 to 7 in the sanctuary or on Zoom, running through the end of July. This will also be a unique opportunity to ask all the questions you've ever been afraid to ask to qualified transgender people in a safe place. If you are interested, please get in touch with Olivia Pavek or Ryan Uri.
Olivia, you want to wave? Up in the balcony.
Now that summer is here, it would be wonderful if coffee hour volunteers could set up now through August. Kat Clancy will be in the fellowship hall after church today with her iPad to help anyone who needs help with the Sign Up Genius. She's also available on the UUC website under volunteer opportunities. And she's also happy to help anyone when it's your first time to make coffee downstairs. Just note in the comment area that you would like help. It's also soon to be UUCP's turn hosting families for Family Promise. These are families that don't have permanent housing, families with children. Hosting in the middle of summer, especially around the 4th of July, can be harder because some people are traveling. So we are very appreciative of people that will sign up if you're available. People are needed to help set up beds, make dinners, keep families company during dinner, do laundry, make pancakes on Saturday, and put the classrooms back together after a week of our hosting. This is a very good opportunity. I think this is our best social justice opportunity. That's just my opinion. I always sign up if I'm in town. There are 2 families enrolled in Family Promise at this time, but that could change. So you need to look for the link in our sign up, which is in the weekly email newsletter. There end the announcements. The land on which our church is built is part of the ancestral homeland of the Nimipu, the people, called the Nez Perce, pierced noses by French-speaking trappers and traders. We acknowledge the land is held in sacred kinship since time immemorial. The land and its peoples suffered immeasurable trauma brought by Euro-American society, and we seek to work with its resilient peoples to show respect and contribute to the healing and nurturing of this hitis wits wheaties, precious land and all its peoples. We are hoping that folks joining us via Zoom have a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together.
Absolutely.
Oh, welcome. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
Good morning. I am the Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Stevens, and I am lucky enough I get to be the minister for this beautiful community. Today, of course, is Father's Day, which, like Mother's Day, can actually be a little tricky. Our feelings with regards to fathers and fatherhood can run the gamut from gratitude and joy and love to grief and resentment and disappointment. For many of us, there's a complicated mix. So in this place, we make space for all the feelings. Whatever is in your heart today, the invitation is just to let it be. We hold it with you. Know that here you are accepted and loved unconditionally. Now, one of the reasons that fathers and fathering can be a delicate subject is that our society's ideas around maleness and the gender binary have infected relationships that ideally would be focused on acceptance, protection, and nurturing, with ideas of control, domination, and subjugation. And while all people and all feelings are welcome here, some ideas are in direct conflict with our values, which doesn't mean they aren't present. Certain ways of thinking about people and the world are handed down from generation to generation, and unavoidably they get embedded in us. It does mean that we share a commitment to examining them, dismantling them if necessary, and moving toward a way of thinking and being that aligns with our values, the ones up on the wall. So we'll do some of that work together here today. We'll be working to replace the constellation of ideas and beliefs that make up toxic masculinity with a restorative masculinity that heals and helps, that holds the complexity of who we truly are. Some things might be said today that could poke some tender places, so please take care of yourselves in whatever ways you need. But also remember where we started, with unconditional love and acceptance. In particular, if those of you who are men feel shame or defensiveness rising, meet it with the sure knowledge that you are cared for and that we don't expect anyone to be perfect. As always, we're just all learning together. So let's begin by singing hymn number 118, This Little Light of Mine.
Now we'll take a moment to engage in the practice of generosity. For those of you able to make a financial contribution, the logistics are on the screen. We typically give away all the cash from our Sunday offering to local charities whose missions align with our values, a program called the Month of Sundays. When a month has 5 Sundays, like this month does, on one of the Sundays, we do a one-time collection for a special cause. Today, the money we collect will go to support the Wellness for All Fair that we as a congregation are co-sponsoring on June 24th. Technically, our donation will go to Bands Off Moscow, which is serving as the fiscal sponsor of the event. To donate, please indicate Month of Sundays on your check or from the online drop-down menu. In the spirit of love and for the continuing work of this church, we will now take the offering.
I still think that may be my favorite thing that we do. So we are saying goodbye to a beloved member of our community. The amazing Alex Aguilar first came to the UUCP back in the spring of 2022. And for the last 3 years, he's effortlessly and cheerfully supported our worship services from the tech booth. He's blessed us on multiple occasions with his incredible musical gifts, and sometimes he's even brought along some of his friends. You want to do the second part?
Oh, sure. So Alex graduated this spring, so he's moving back down to Boise, where he's from, with the intention of eventually enrolling at Boise State and pursuing a master's degree in order to teach in the public schools, which I think is going to be a great, great fit for Alex. So Alex, I know everyone here agrees with me that your future students will be so lucky to have you. But it also means that we have to say goodbye. And as Elizabeth likes to remind people, saying goodbye is about saying thank you. So we also have a few gifts for Alex.
So to remind you of the Palouse, we have a book of Palouse photography that we have all signed, kind of like a yearbook. To remind you of us, we have a little photograph of our group photo, and thank you for being the actual impetus for having that photo taken. And then, last but hopefully not least, a little something to ease your financial transition. We love you so much.
I've been leaving Moscow this past semester and like saying goodbye to all my friends and stuff. I always tell people that the hardest thing for me is going to be leaving you guys. Just because you guys have always supported me in everything that I've done, and I wouldn't have had half the things that I've had without all the support I've had here. I started off as just like a job on the Sundays here and some extra cash, and I felt unwavering love here and support. And I've really felt like I've gotten to know Moscow as like a community and as a town through here. And it's always a joy to share music here because I know you guys love it and appreciate it in a way that other people don't. And so I just can't say thank you enough. And in kind of an awkward manner, like when you say goodbye and you're like walking the same way, I will be here for another 2 weeks. So I'm going back and forth from Boise and here to move stuff, but I'm going to be here for the music camp. So I'm taking advantage, and I'll be here next Sunday, and then the Sunday after that will be my last official one here. But I am taking this. Yeah, I'll do something. Yeah. But I really can't say thank you enough, and I can't feel the goodbye more than this one. So thank you.
Yeah, we had to do it today because it's my last Sunday before sabbatical.
And we'll leave the book somewhere in case somebody didn't get a chance to sign it. It'll be back there. We'll pass it around a bit.
And we'll also have out a tip jar downstairs. The little something came from the board, and it's a check for $500. But we had a lot of people say that they wanted to chip in as well. So there will be a tip jar for Alex downstairs. And that was Sam's idea. He said when he transitioned out of college, his first job gave him a check for $200, and it made such a huge difference. So these transitions are expensive. You're welcome. You're welcome. And now I'll invite Rodney Fry forward to lead us through the sharing of joys and sorrows. I invite you now into a time of meditation with these words by Amy Jones, a Father's Day prayer. Today is Father's Day, so we take this moment to hold space for all that may mean to us. Human relations are complicated. These days of recognition are complex. Please breathe in what serves you and breathe out that which does not. We hold love for those who have lost fathers and for those fathers who have lost children. We acknowledge and hold non-binary, transgender, and cisgender dads in families made of two dads, foster and adoptive dads, and single dads. We hold and work to lift up all fathers of color and those fathers raising children of color. We hold fathers kept apart from their children by borders and war. We hold fathers and children who have lost connection, children who have been disowned or abandoned by their fathers, and the father figures who step in. We hold those longing to become fathers. We hold those who may be full of questions about their biological fathers. Most importantly, we hold and thank the dads, the papas, the daddies. We thank all who showed up for us and who continue to show up for the children who need them, using their strength and their privilege to create safe and spacious places where young beings can grow and become their true selves. Let's rest in the silence together. Amen, and blessed be.
Tiptoe, rustle, I hear something around. Wild eyes, surprise, you pounce, then I'm down. Rough house, tough mouse, I'm Calvin to your harps. Tangled tickles, we're learning how to stop. Play with me wild, my only child. Teach me what you see. You have our hearts and squeeze out all our hopes and dreams. Toss to you as you please. Father Time. The golden years, they just right here, and I'm watching them otherwise. No, this time and space necessitates wide eyes to burn the image. So along the years, we'll have it clear and know that we lived it. Oh, play with me, wild, my only child. Teach me what you see. You have our hearts and tease out all our hopes and dreams. Coming to you as you please. Play with me, wild, my only child. Teach me what you need. You have our hearts and squeeze out all that we can be. Coming to you as you please.
Thank you so much, Will. I love that Clover came out to hear it. So we hear a lot about toxic masculinity these days, but I first came across the term restorative masculinity in a column called The Real Crisis of Masculinity by our own Ryan Urey. I'd like to invite him forward to share it with you.
As Elizabeth mentioned, this is taken straight from a column that I published in the paper a couple of years ago. So anybody who follows my writing, this might sound kind of familiar. Men live shorter lives than women. We are more likely to become addicted to drugs and alcohol, have cardiovascular disease, kill ourselves, die in accidents, become homeless, become incarcerated, and die by gun violence. However, this is not the crisis of masculinity discussed by podcasters and pundits who see a more tolerant, compassionate society as weak and in need of traditional manly virtues of strength, ruggedness, and independence. Not that there's anything wrong with those per se, but the actual crisis of masculinity has nothing to do with men not willing to be forceful. Rather, it's precisely in the casual cruelties, dehumanizing rhetoric, and juvenile bravado of toxic men that the lack of actual masculinity is most evident. Now, there are many reasons for the dearth of honest, bold, assertive men in our society right now. First, today's men were frequently abandoned by their fathers, who either left outright or just ignored their children in the pursuit of career and financial success. But with no positive male role models, they instead emulated the heroes of action movies and video games, where every problem can be solved with sufficient violence. Second, men in today's society bear a heavy burden of shame. We get blamed for nearly all of society's murders, rapes, child abuse, spousal abuse, and other violent crimes, and merely because, well, men overwhelmingly do most of those things. However, when boys get raised on this steady diet of negative messaging about masculinity, they're left with an impossible choice. They can either renounce all of their inborn traits seen as masculine, or they can accept that the harm they're going to do is inevitable and double down on those toxic behaviors that are expected of them. Either choice involves a great deal of shame. Third, the foregoing generation left behind a corporatized model of adulthood so dull and undignified as to not be worth aspiring to. We were raised not to be citizens or neighbors, but only consumers and cubicled employees, our life's purpose found in material accumulation and empty hedonism. With the transition to adulthood being more resignation than anticipation, is it any wonder that today's men often act like bratty teens, grandiose, self-absorbed, and resentful of responsibility? What society needs is a restorative masculinity marked by courage, creativity, and attunement to the needs of others. While there are surely as many ways to be a real man as there are men, the very idea of masculinity is incompatible with the destructive narcissism of so-called toxic masculinity. We need men who serve their communities and who are valued in turn. So how do we foster this kind of healthy masculinity? Well, first, children need positive masculine role models. And I don't mean on TV or movies or in video games. I mean real flesh and blood relationships with older men who can show them the ropes. And if the idea of older men having relationships with boys instantly sets off alarms in your head, well, remember what I said about shame. There are a lot of men who avoid interacting with children at all because they don't want to be looked at like they're pedophiles. Second, all children should be taught that they're valued and to be proud of their identity. And third, we need to transform adulthood into something children can look forward to rather than dread and put off. The superficial drudgery and the banality of the modern economy is anything but life-affirming. And for the damaged men here and now, we need meaningful opportunities for real-world connection, community, and purpose. And if any of the men listening are in search of such opportunities, please get in touch. I have a few ideas. Just like everyone else, men need trusting relationships, a meaningful role, and to be told that they matter. The crisis of masculinity won't be solved by restoring the patriarchal systems of the last century. A selfish, insecure, and trivial masculinity has been the cause of so many of our world's problems, but just maybe a nurturing, confident, life-affirming masculinity can be the first step towards solving them. Thank you.
We need men who serve their communities and are valued in turn. Men like Ryan and like Ken Fonce and Tom Salisbury and Nick Castleman, who we are about to hear from.
So growing up, I was never taught to express my emotions unless it was anger. Anger was the only emotion that I was allowed to express. And so my father, who was a kind man, did not express his emotions at all. In fact, the only time I saw him cry was at my mother's funeral. And so I suppressed all of these feelings growing up. Now, I had several older brothers who were much older than I am, and they were, very much the product of toxic masculinity. They were violent, aggressive, hyper-competitive, and never showed anything but anger as an emotion. And so, as role models, they were not great. And so, as a teenager and a young adult, I decided that I would not be this way. It just never felt right to me. It felt wrong. And so I worked very hard all my life to not follow in those footsteps. And so I express my emotions. And so with my son and 3 daughters, I express emotions other than anger, a range of emotions. They have seen me cry. Also, my father never ever said he loved me until about 2 years before he died. He started to do that. Now, I knew he loved me, but he never expressed that in words at all. And so he only started doing it in later years of his life because I had for a long time, every time I spoke with him, told him I loved him. And he finally did say it back to me, breaking that pattern. But with my children, I've always told them I love them, and I still do today as adults. When we speak and we're done speaking, I tell them I love them, a phone call or a visit, whatever it is, on a regular basis. And so I've worked in my life very hard to get rid of these other ideas, to be a better nurturing parent, to express a wide range of emotions, not to get angry all the time as I was raised with, and to not be aggressive, hyper competitive, these types of things. And so my goal has always been to not only be a role model for my children, but to do things in society that make it better. And so, I've devoted a lot of my time and effort to helping people, not only in my teaching, but in my community activities. And so all of this has been sort of to overcome that burden of being raised in a toxic masculinity environment, that at the very least you did not show emotions, all that, but also, the more bad negative sides of it as well. And so I hope that I've been able to overcome these ideas and help my son overcome them, which I believe I have, and to show my daughters what a proper style of masculinity would be, that is expressive, showing your emotions, helping people. And so hopefully that I've passed that on to them so that when they seek partners, that they're not going to go down that road the way I did. And so that's it.
Record last night. It was 11:30 after cooking all day, so it was not a very good recording. So back in 1991, my dad gave me a book. I was 25. My dad gave me a book called King, Warrior, Magician, and Lover by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. Dad had gotten the book from his men's group, who had helped him come to grips with his own shadows which had broken his marriage, ruptured his relationships with community, and actually nearly cost him his life. The gift was given with a lot of intentionality. Dad was a computer engineer and I was an English teacher, so it was usually me giving books to him, not the other way around. So I dove into the book with relish. Some of you may be familiar with the 4 archetypes of the mature masculine covered in the book: king, warrior, magician, and lover. The first archetype is the king energy, not of an individual king, as in yesterday's protest, but as an archetype that's in all of us. In its fullness, the 2 functions of king energy are for ordering and for providing fertility and blessing. Dad passed away 2 years ago, and as I shared at his memorial, Dad's greatest gift to me was his blessing, that I was seen, valued, rewarded for my talents and abilities, even though I didn't always see those talents or recognize my abilities. So young men and women need this blessing. They really are starving for it. The second archetype is the warrior energy, the hunter energy, and the energy that in its fullness is mindful and discerning. Of course, our society has a complicated relationship with the warrior archetype and the destruction of things. In its fullness, warrior energy relates to decisiveness, which is developed through deep training and discipline to control one's own mind and attitudes. But warriors need space to swing their swords. Dad was exceptionally focused, very talented on projects, both at home and work, and he needed emotional distance to do his work well. Those long hours of disciplined work came at an emotionally devastating cost to his personal life, especially to his relationship with my mom. The third archetype is the magician, which has a 2-fold role. One is the knower and the master of technology. The second role is the ritual initiation of secret and hidden knowledge, knowledge that takes special training to acquire. This specialized knowledge gives the magician archetype enormous ability to hold, to both contain and channel power. We seek sacred spaces, such as our beautiful church, where we find shelter from the raw power of the human spirit, while simultaneously accessing that power. Dad used his magician archetype, his knowledge and technical proficiency, for the benefit of others. It's how he expressed his love. He wouldn't just ask if you needed help, rather he'd show up with his trailer, van, tools, and be ready to work. And it didn't matter where you lived or how far. He was ready to help with computer technology, which was his profession, along with building projects, tax returns, moving, car repairs, financial support, and on and on and on. The fourth and final archetype is the lover, that is, being in one's body without shame. The lover archetype sees the interconnectedness of all things. Sounds familiar. Which leads to empathy and compassion, like, sorry for the reference, Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Jedi, who can feel changes in the Force. The lover archetype connects to a collective unconscious. The lover desires to touch and be touched. Writing, languages, music, and even thought are sensuous experiences. Dad grew up on a small family farm in Western Ohio. He loved the outdoors, and he introduced my brother and me to camping, hiking, biking, sailing, and other outdoor non-motorized activities. It was the aesthetics of the outdoors that he loved. The lover archetype is in touch with others and all of life, creating deep empathy. Thus, the lover archetype feels the pain of others, is present to bear witness to that pain, and endures it. Art, broadly defined, intuitions and hunches draw from lover energy. Surely every profession draws on lover energy for creativity. Dad was a great think outside the box problem solver at work and at home. In our DIY projects, Dad would hit a snag in his plan, and after a few curses, great curses, he'd scratch his head, he'd turn to me and he'd say, "You know, Tom, we just gotta improvise." The men that I have chosen to work with through my participation in men's groups are all fathers themselves. One of the great benefits of being in community with other like-minded men is that we are accountable. We challenge each other to use our king energy for order and blessing, our warrior energy for mindful discernment, our magician energy in knowledge and technical proficiency for the benefit of others, and finally our lover energy for creativity and problem solving. These are the archetypes that we bring to parenthood, so it's to my brothers and fathers that I say Happy Father's Day.
Hey, you church. My name is Nick Castleman. You might recognize me and my kid Artemis from productions such as the Christmas pageant, where we played Joseph and Jesus. It's Father's Day, so wanted to speak a little bit about my experience as a parent. I'm in a kind of interesting situation. Artemis, Artie for short, is adopted, and so I think a lot about like what does it mean to be a parent. A birth parent versus an adopted parent. I'm single, and so I end up having to fill two roles, both the kind of traditional mother and father role. And I'm also gay, and so as a man, I've just always had a complicated relationship with masculinity. And yeah, often, obviously I'm like male-bodied, but don't identify a lot with kind of traditional masculine traits. But I think that although my perspective is inherently fatherly, because I'm a father, the truth has no gender, and so the things that I've learned, I think, are true irrespective of what traditional role you end up filling. When I was first wanting a kid, I thought, I want to be a parent because I love hanging out with kids. But what I found has been just as rewarding and valuable has been the personal transformation that I've needed to go through in order to be the kind of parent that I want to be, in order to raise a kid in a loving home. And so hopefully this will be helpful for everyone, not just fathers. So it's easy to pass on the pain. I think that we've experienced the ways that you were parented, you end up parenting in those ways. And so I think that we end up needing to heal and transform those things in ourselves in order to pass on the qualities that we want to our kids, whether it's hope, whether it's kindness, compassion, patience. And so I think the first step in doing that is just being aware of what's coming up. So when anger comes up, instead of just reacting to the anger, just pausing and seeing, okay, where does this anger come from? What is it trying to tell me? And in that second that you kind of realize what's going on, you have the opportunity to do something different. And so another thing that has helped me is giving up some of these labels. So giving up the label of parent or man or whatever, and just looking directly at what's happening. So if there's frustration, instead of saying, like, oh, this is a toxic masculine trait, just say directly, like, oh, I don't like this frustration that's coming up. Labels and patterns can be helpful, but to live in the present moment is to give up those things and just see exactly what's happening. Another thing that's been helpful is seeing my kid as a friend and someone that I love and want to grow on their own, and not as someone that I'm controlling or protecting. Like, I think, obviously, I'm protecting my kid, but pain and hurt is a part of life, and if you never experience it, then you never learn how to handle it. And so in a friend, you would never, well, maybe not never, but you wouldn't, we wouldn't do a lot of things to our friends that we end up doing it to our kids. And so I think it can be helpful to see you are a guardian of their light, not a person that's controlling every aspect of their lives. And then just always leaning towards that compassion and love. You need to give that to yourself first before you can give it to your kid. That's what comes to mind now. Good luck, everyone out there. You can sleep eventually, but you might be missing out on some of it for now.
In 2019, Gillette issued an ad called "The Best Men Can Be." It juxtaposed images of bullying behavior with images of decency, courage, and compassion. There was an immediate backlash, so strong that Gillette took it off the air. Therapist Terry Reel reports, the nerve the ad hit is prominently on display if you go to Twitter, #boycott_Gillette. Here's a typical example. Feminists made up toxic masculinity. It's not a real thing. They will not be happy until men act like women. Female supremacy is their true goal, and bigotry. Imagine being so insecure that you're threatened by a razor ad. Like Ryan and Ken and Tom and Nick, Terry Reel argues for a healthier way of being male. He writes, it's time for more of us men to stand up to the traditions of masculinity we've been handed, to sort through which elements are worthy and which toxic. We should do so not just for the sake of the women we care about and for the children in our charge, but for our own health and well-being. Moving from a patriarchal paradigm to a relational one means leaving a linear, hierarchical world of power over others, as Riane Eisler describes it, and stepping into an ecological world of power with. It means moving away from a dominance model, placing men above nature, whether the nature one lords over is a wife or child, an assistant, or one's own body, to a collaborative model in which we see ourselves as situated within nature rather than ruling over it. Our relationships are our biospheres. We live within them, not above them. End of quote. For those of you who were here on Easter, you may see the connection. When we humans impose a hierarchical structure on society or on the natural world, it opens the door for harm. By privileging some and declaring others less than, that it opens the door to a practice of justifying violence to advance the interests of those we decide are more important. Patriarchy, or toxic masculinity, privileges a certain type of man and dehumanizes everyone else. Male-identified humans are harmed as they try to squeeze themselves into a mold that some part of them inherently recognizes as either inauthentic or morally wrong. And the rest of us are harmed by those who find that mold a comfortable fit. Now, I'm a feminist, unabashed. I hate the patriarchy, and I have good reason. I exist in a female body that has endured harassment and sexual assault and abuse. I had to dismantle the internalized patriarchy called the feminine beauty standard in order to love and accept myself and see myself as beautiful. You know, my mom started me on Weight Watchers when I was 10, and I wasn't even overweight. But I can tell you that I have no desire to turn men into women. I like men. As a feminist, I want all people to be supported in becoming the truest, most authentic, and best version of themselves, regardless of their gender identity. I want all people to engage in the admittedly sometimes challenging discipline of nurturing healthy and caring relationships with people who are different from them. I envision a restorative masculinity that centers on two key practices. The first is creating an identity and an ethical framework that fits. Not one that is not warped or damaged by the social constructs of gender. This doesn't require rejecting everything society codes as traditionally masculine. If you like watching football, watch football. If you're innately protective, offer to protect people who are in vulnerable situations. Just wait for their consent. It does require self-awareness and self-assuredness. Men who practice restorative masculinity need to be far more solid and secure in their maleness than those guys who drive jacked up trucks and are threatened by razor ads. What enables male children to adopt this first practice is when they are loved and accepted unconditionally, allowed to be who they are, accepted in their particularities and their peculiarities. They need to be encouraged to respect the inherent worth of the people around them. Just like all children, they need to see empathy and compassion modeled, and they need to be held to account when they behave in ways that cause harm to themselves or others. The second practice of restorative masculinity is using male privilege strategically to make space for people of all genders to thrive. I see a lot of examples of these kinds of practices, from the men who posted pictures of themselves with My Little Pony lunchboxes in support of a boy who got teased because he carried one, to the guys who offer video tutorials on active consent. I see it in the way so many of the fathers in this congregation parent their children, meeting them where they are, supporting their interests, allowing them to be who they are rather than seeing fatherhood as an opportunity to mold their kids into some predetermined pattern. See, privilege, male or otherwise, isn't a bad thing in and of itself. How we use our privilege is what matters. Some people use it to oppress others and advance their own agendas, but some people use their privilege to interrupt oppression, to stop abuse. This might look like introducing yourselves with pronouns, stepping in if you see someone catcalling or harassing a woman, being confident enough in your own masculinity to do or wear things that are coded for women or queer folk, like showing up for Pride decked out in rainbows and glitter. It looks like stepping back, paying attention to who is speaking in a group and how much, and making sure that non-male voices are heard, even if that means actually not saying everything that you could possibly say. It looks like following the lead of women, girls, and queer folk in your life. One of the things I love most is seeing the men in this congregation parent their daughters. Sam, the music director in particular, meets Sophie where she is and lets her have her fair share, and maybe even more than her fair share, of power in their relationship. And I know it's tricky sometimes, but I think it is so cool. It looks like reading books, watching movies, listening to music that isn't written by people who look like you, so that you can better understand the experience of people who aren't living in male bodies. It looks like doing your homework, learning about the patriarchy, and then talking about what you've learned, not with women and queer folk, that would be mansplaining, but with other men. Male supremacy is the air we breathe and the water we swim in. So if we're going to dismantle it and heal our world, we have to make it visible. Restorative masculinity goes beyond seeing women and queer folk as human beings worthy of care and respect. It involves exposing the brittle falseness of toxic masculinity and refusing to accept the status quo. It involves challenging others to accept all of our beautiful differences, rehumanizing the folks they might otherwise objectify or try to shove into boxes. We need to work together to teach our children to be brave and deeply kind. We need to equip them with skills to disrupt bullying and defend the bullied. We need to teach them to feel and express their emotions in healthy ways. We need to make sure they have well-honed BS detectors so they can debunk whatever garbage ideas about real men or the gender binary they might encounter when they're out in the wild. When we tell the truth about who we are and what we see, we disrupt the toxic elements that are attempting to poison our psyches, trying to turn men into immature and violent narcissists, and women and trans and non-binary folk into victims. Restorative masculinity, or restorative femininity for that matter, isn't just about smashing the patriarchy. It's about replacing the patriarchy with a network of relationships woven out of trust and respect, courage and kindness, and most especially, love. So be it, and so may it be. Let's join together in singing our closing hymn, number 1007, There's a River. Our closing reading is by my friend, the Reverend Eric Kamenetsky. I want my beloved and all of the people who identify as women or trans or non-binary people whom I know, and all of the people who identify as women or trans or non-binary people whom I don't know, to be able to claim their power and to be able to shape this world toward a reality that is safer, saner, stronger, softer, and more welcoming for them. I also want for the men in this world and for me and my male identified children to be able to embrace and exercise our full emotional ranges without having to extract a cost from anyone else in order to be able to do so. Amen. Let's sing together, There Is a Love. Please join me in the words to embody our chalice flame. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Folks, I'm heading off for 3 months and I'm going to miss you terribly. But know that you carry my love with you where you go. All that you are, good, bad, indifferent, your doubts, your worries, your fears, your frustrations, I am with you in them. And you're with each other in them as well. I'll see you in the fall. Go in peace. Come back next Sunday.